US President Barack Obama has delivered his last major speech while in office. Obama addressed tens of thousands of people in Chicago. The president defended his time in office and had a message for Americans looking ahead to a Donald Trump presidency.
Our economy doesn't work as well or grow as fast when a few prosper at the expense of a growing middle class and ladders for folks who want to get into the middle class. That's the economic argument, but stark inequality is also corrosive to our democratic idea. While the top 1% has amassed a bigger share of wealth and income, too many of our families in inner cities and in rural counties have been left behind. The laid-off factory worker, the waitress or healthcare worker who's just barely getting by and struggling to pay the bills, convinced that the game is fixed against them, that their government only serves the interests of the powerful. That's a recipe for more cynicism and polarization in our politics.
Well, Kilmeny Duckhart joins us now with more on Obama's farewell speech. Kilmeny, good to see you. You've spent, the last year or so in Washington, D.C., covering the election there, the politics there. What was your reaction to Obama's speech?
Well, an incredible emotional speech from U.S. President Barack Obama. There's only been a few times where we've seen the president really tear up, one of which was the Newtown, Connecticut massacre where 20 children and 6 adults were killed. And this was another time, really a moment for him to take stock of his 8 years in office, but also address some of the concerns and the divisions in America. And we certainly saw that tonight in this speech. Let's take a look at this one moment where the crowd actually erupted in boos.
In 10 days, the world will witness a hallmark of our democracy. No. The peaceful transfer of power from one freely elected president to the next.
And of course, he talked about basically healing the divisions in America, of coming together, of taking responsibility for the decisions, for the votes that were cast, and asking citizens to take a more active role in government. Here's what he said in terms of trying to bring Americans together after what was a very divisive, nasty, tough election cycle. Here's what he had to say.
This must change. They won't change overnight. Social attitudes oftentimes take generations to change. But if our democracy is to work the way it should in this increasingly diverse nation, then each one of us need to try to heed the advice of a great character in American fiction, Atticus Finch, who said, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it."
I suppose, Kilmeny, by the very nature of a speech like this, a lot of it was looking back at his 8 years in office, a lot of it looking forward as well. I suppose he's hoping that what he sees as his legacy isn't going to be undone going forward.
The fact of the matter is that President-elect Donald Trump's entire campaign, most of it has been spent trying to reverse a lot of the Obama administration's policies, particularly with regard to Obamacare. When we look at what President Obama said tonight in terms of his legacy, what he has accomplished for the American people, he talked about taking out Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the September 11th attacks. He talked about renewing the relationship with the Cuban people. He talked about curbing the Iran nuclear deal, which was something that his administration had touted as this huge accomplishment. The biggest threat, though, is his landmark health care deal, which has been Obamacare. And he basically said that that has given insurance to 20 million Americans. Of course, these are all things that Donald Trump has painted as bad policies, as things that haven't helped Americans, with the regular American having their insurance premiums going up. So certainly he spent a lot of time time defending that. Of course, Donald Trump has also staked his campaign on what he says is securing their borders, banning Muslim Americans from coming into the United States. And he really made a point to talk about not giving into that fear. Let's listen.
We must guard against a weakening of the values that make us who we are. And that's why for the past 8 years, I've worked to put the fight against terrorism on a firmer legal footing. That's why we've ended torture, worked to close Gitmo, reformed our laws governing surveillance to protect privacy and civil liberties. That's why I reject discrimination against Muslim Americans, who are just as patriotic as we are.
So, Kilmeny, final thoughts then on Obama's parting message?
Well, as I mentioned before, you know, a very, very emotional speech, not just when U.S. President Barack Obama turned to First Lady Michelle Obama and thanked her for her support, for being his best friend in office. He turned to U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and thanked him for not only being his first and best pick in his administration, but also for being a brother to him. So it was really a sentimental moment for the Obama administration. But actually making the buzz on social media has been the fact that that Malia, actually Sasha, one of the first daughters, was absent from the event. But he did have a moment where he turned to his daughter Malia and he said that regardless of his 8 years in office, one of his proudest moments as president of the United States was being her father. And of course, she was in tears. Who wouldn't be with a sentiment like that from your father, the president of the United States? So Obama wrapping up a very tumultuous and difficult 8 years in office, especially a lot of those achievements, as I mentioned, were things that were done by executive order because he did not have the power of Congress on his side, which U.S. President-elect Donald Trump does have going forward.
Okay, Kilmeny, thank you.